Today we're honored to welcome Ellyn Mcleod to the show today. I'm very excited to have her on. She talks about so many different topics related to nutrition, mindset, and ultimately, a lot of us, we don't really understand how holistic health is relating to how a lot of emotions that we may be carrying around, past experiences, trauma, whatever it is, that can definitely influence our biology and potentially cause a disease if we don't handle it right. So many different things that go into that. But also, nutrition is also a huge topic that some of us, we don't really understand how that impacts our biology. And most Americans are sick, right? Most of us, we have some type of disease, or even if we're not, we're experiencing symptoms. And there's so many different things that we can do to amplify our health, these small wins every single day that we can take control of. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So, how are you doing today, Ellyn?
I'm doing great. I'm really glad you actually mentioned that because I was just researching a topic for a client, and most of the public medical institutions are now advertising that over 70% of Americans have a chronic illness. It's unbelievable that we are all so okay with being sick. I think we all deserve vibrant health.
100%, yeah. So, very curious to hear your story and how you got into wellness, being an author, and how you're being of service today in terms of the field of wellness.
Well, I'll encapsulate it. I actually had my own healing journey. I had my first child back when I was 28 years old, and after having her, I developed a lot of intestinal disorder. I had a lot of, I guess you would call it kind of a pre-Crohn's disease diagnosis is what ended up happening when I went to a gastroenterologist. And when I asked what could be done, he mentioned that, well, we'll just give you some medications and then we'll probably have to do surgery and slowly take away parts of your colon. And that just didn't sit well with me. And I just really luckily ran into someone who knew a nutritionist and said, oh, it's probably your food. So I went to see her and just changed everything about the way I ate. I don't think I realized, even as a 28-year-old, how much of my food was processed. I thought it was healthy. It could even be organic, but it was processed, so it had lost all of its life. And I just delved into this entire search, not only for myself and my family, but then eventually for some of the people I worked with, because I ended up getting a PhD in nutrition and worked with the Gerson Institute on trying to help people with cancer look at their nutritional needs. But there was something much deeper than that. I'm sure we'll go into that.
Yeah, great story. I mean, so many of us, we get into this, I find, based off our own health story, someone that we love, right? It's that hero's journey, in a sense. We actually find that, hey, this thing that we're doing is not working. And hey, this way that we can do to heal and get better, that's a much more optimal way of being and much more in alignment with who we actually are. And that's a story in itself. So appreciate you sharing that. Do you find that, when most of us, we go about our health journey, we don't really understand the right information, or is it something that perhaps we're holding on to certain beliefs? Because a lot of us, we're so sick, but like in your mind, what is the reason for that?
Well, what I discovered with working with my patients, and a lot of these people who were in their cancer healing journey were doing all kinds of things. Some were going with Western medicine and doing chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. And some just completely abandoned that and decided to do something holistic. It really didn't matter what they were doing as much as it mattered what they were thinking. And what I found out is that every one of them had some sort of core issue, either a belief system, or they had a trauma, or they had some sort of a relationship in which they created a block to their healing. So it didn't matter how perfect they were about their plan. And yet, when we discovered what the real block was, we could go back in, change that core belief, really look at it deeper, and find out maybe where a childhood pattern, it's usually where it starts, a childhood pattern put them in this situation so that now cancer was their teacher and they could really learn from their illness. And that's really what my book is about. It Takes More Than Carrot Juice. It's this story of 20 of these patients and what their true healing really included. And it isn't just about the physical body. So yes, it is a core belief system. It is not only put on us collectively by our entire society and how we think about our bodies and how we think about our health, but it's also our personal stories and what's happened to us over the course of our childhood and our lives that has put kind of a stressor into something that ends up becoming a trigger. And once that trigger happens, then disease just takes that opportunity to take over the body and really teach you something. Every one of my patients would have to say at the end that they aren't sorry that they got the diagnosis because it changed their life, their relationships, their spiritual sense of being, the relationship with God, all of it. So I think that if you see it as a teacher, the teacher can teach you the lesson and then they can move on.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like when we talk about holistic health, like it really encompasses everything, especially the mind and the emotions, right? And as you mentioned, if we start to not be a victim necessarily of it, that can be very difficult. We start to be a victor of the circumstance. We start to embrace these things. And what that means is we start to ask certain questions like, how can I learn from this? Like as you mentioned, this can be your teacher in a sense. And our mess can become our message, right? We learn all these tools through it and be of service on the other side, right? So we start to embrace it. And that's when we start to heal, because that's when we actually start to put the action in place as well.
Exactly. And I think with food, there's a lot of core beliefs around food. So I think that when you're working in that realm in nutrition, you are able to uncover and see these patterns that people have, and it really translates to their life. So if there's someone who's a protector and they're shielding themselves and they're eating a lot of food in order to create comfort and protection, you see that they also do that in their lives. It's not just about the food that they're eating. It's also the way they're living, where they shelter themselves, they close themselves off from others, they start to put up these gates or armor so that they don't reveal who they really are, or they don't let people into their heart. And so therefore they can't really love, and love is the healing element.
Yeah. How can we start to become aware of these things if we're holding on to these patterns? Because we've been dealing with it for years or decades, and we just think it's our natural way of being. Like, how can we start to become aware that it's actually not, and perhaps like a protective mechanism?
Well, I think that awareness for most people, well, there's probably several stages, right? I mean, you do have people who get it early and understand from being good observers as to what really clicks and what works in their lives. But then some people have to get to the deepest, darkest bottom and really have to get down to the point where they're so ill. I mean, a life-threatening illness is the ultimate wake-up call, right? I mean, especially cancer. And if you're given a diagnosis, my first chapter, I talk about a woman who really didn't think much past her tennis court, right? She played with her friends. She went to work every day and had a relationship with her husband, which was relatively superficial. And it was really the cancer diagnosis that woke her up. So I think when you get to that bottom, then you can start learning to become more authentic. And as you do, these things start to miraculously come into your path. If you're aware enough, the answers start to come.
Right, yeah. I feel like the more still we can be, the more silence we can have, like the more answers will come, because a lot of us were distracted by so many different things. And a lot of times, like, our brain will go to work solving problems if we give it the space to do so, right? Just give ourselves a space to think and just kind of relax and just contemplate things, right? It's like something that is unfortunately rare these days.
It is. And I think that when you're able to recognize the difference in those voices, so the ego's voice is really loud, telling you, oh yeah, go ahead and have that drink, go ahead and have that cigarette, go ahead and sleep with that stranger. I think that voice is really loud. So it really takes contemplation. It really takes the ability to meditate, journal, pray, and get that quiet space so you can hear that quiet voice that's telling you, oh, maybe what you want to do over here is take a look at the way your eating patterns are, or what your relationship is with your husband or your children, or maybe you should forgive yourself. And that's a big one. I would say that forgiveness, in my perspective with working with my patients, it's not just about forgiving someone else for what they think they did to them. It's about forgiving themselves for what they think about their identity and who they are. and let that perception go, because the longer you hang on to that and that negativity, the more the illness and the immune system start to take over. The immune system starts to break down. I don't know if you've heard it's kind of a Buddhist saying that, anger is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. And that's kind of what happens with illness.
Yeah. I mean, it all starts with us, right? As you mentioned, like, get to forgive yourself and almost train your mind in a sense to, I guess, be solution oriented, right? Because if we're constantly focused on perhaps distractions and, just negative thought patterns, we have to retrain our minds in a sense. And it takes practice, it takes work to actually sit in that stillness, because I feel like we don't do it because we're kind of afraid of doing so, in a sense of perhaps what could happen. Do you see that?
Oh yeah, I definitely think that's the people who have the hardest time healing are the people who are the busiest with all of the outside distractions. So it takes really looking at those distractions and finding out whether they're serving you or not. You could be involved with a sports group, or stress at work, or you've got a relationship that isn't working for you, or your kids are all encompassing and you're just overdoing with them. There's so many different things. And even, aspects of conflict. We know about traumas. It may not be just life traumas. It might be something really deeper that really needs to be explored. I had one patient who for years had been denying his guilt that he had been in Vietnam. He'd gone through a series of really unexpected tragedies, and the final trauma was he actually killed some women and children in a village and never told anyone about it. After he left there, other than his platoon, the only person that knew about it was him. He didn't even tell his wife, and he'd been married for over 25 years. But through the course of our work, he finally realized it was safe enough for him to tell me the story, and his prostate cancer completely reversed itself. And he had been working with every modality you can think of for almost 5 years on his prostate cancer, but it took that admission and letting go of the guilt for him to really heal. And he ended up going home, working with charities with children, working with an adoption agency, helping other people who were veterans, and doing a lot of volunteer work, because at that point he was over 60, and that just completely filled his life, and he found a sense of purpose. I think that was the key for him.
Yeah. We put so much effort on these external things, but sometimes we need to focus the effort inwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is where it all happens. You can blame all the outside world, right? The wars that are going on, the politicians, the ex, but it's all right here.
How can we start to begin that process of forgiveness if we need to do so? Starting with ourselves, like, is there a process that if people go through? Is it start with awareness? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I use a process that's really similar to something called Choose Again. There's a Costa Rican retreat center that uses this process just in general, but I use this with patients, and it's a 6-step process of really taking a look at, first of all, admitting that you're upset, because a lot of people bury it, right? Oh, I'm fine. Oh, but are you sure you're not angry? No, I'm just fine. So you've got to admit you're upset. Second, you've got to admit that this is all about you. This is you. Same thing could happen to someone else, and they may not have the same trigger, right? Then you really have to go back and find out what that feeling is. So it's not enough just to realize it's you that are upset. What are you upset with? Is it anger? Is it guilt? Is it depression? Is it overwhelm? What is the feeling, and really learn to deeply feel that feeling. And then the 4th step is going back and figuring out as early as you possibly can in your childhood, where did I first feel that feeling? And there's usually some sort of a key element somewhere between the ages of 0 and 7, if you can remember that far back, in which something like that occurred, and it set this completely detrimental core belief in which you've been living out the rest of your life that's put you in this situation. So then the next step is recognizing that this is saying something about you. What is it saying about me? What's my identity related to this core belief? And now the final step is flip it. You're not worthless. You're not a scarcity project. You have the flip side. Abundance is everything. I am a light. I can be love. I can accept love. I can give love. I am a divine being. I want prosperity in my life. So you have to flip that, and once you do that, that's usually when people start to cry, when they realize who they really are, what their identity really is. So for me, that's really the process. And when we go through some of these archetypes, because everybody falls into one or more archetypes that was developed in their childhood for protection, right? It served us for a while. But by the time you're an adult, you no longer need it.
Right. Yeah. I'd imagine it definitely has an impact because we go through our lives for so long and we don't really realize who we even are. But then we start to discover that, it's like, there's a light, right?
Yeah. And that is the process of forgiveness. So forgiving all those things you thought someone did to you, forgiving all those aspects that you think you are, and recognizing the truth.
Right.
So that to me is forgiveness.
Yeah. I think the truth is the highest form of frequency as well, right? When you operate out of that, it's like you're just kind of in alignment and on purpose for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up frequency because that is an aspect, and certainly of nutrition too, of putting your body in as high a frequency as possible, because that space between the molecules is where the healing happens, and that's where the energy is. So by giving yourself foods that are high frequency, you also help to move yourself and your thoughts into high frequency for healing. So, things that are as close to the way Mother Nature intended it, right? Foods that, if you can get organic, would be great. But to have single ingredient foods rather than something out of a packaged can or bottle.
Yeah. That's amazing, right? Because I feel like a lot of us who do so much hard work to transform our minds, but we don't realize like how much easier it is once we're starting to eat real food, because all these things, they influence our biology in a very significant way, right? It's like once you start to be more in line with what is real from a nutrition standpoint, a lot of times like these problems will be solved automatically. I find a lot, like not always, but because there's so many different facets, but what you start to do is you stack the conditions in your favor to win, right? Instead of like the opposite of just going like this perpetuous circle of hardship, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned like everyone's triggered in a certain way, because sometimes like we have our certain responses and we don't really realize, we don't align that with certain past experiences, right? We just kind of, perhaps this is a way that you're supposed to respond, or you think this is how you respond personally, but you can always track that back and actually do some healing work on that and move forward in a more healthy manner, I find.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you have those patterns about food too.
Yeah.
If you were ignored or you were abandoned as a child, and yet now your foster parent, the way that he connects with you is to take you to donuts every Sunday. And so you now associate, attention and love with eating donuts. You can kind of transfer that over into your eating patterns. So yeah, it can be a vicious cycle.
Right. Yeah. And in terms of like processing, I find like it's very difficult to process things if we're in a low energy state, because I feel like processing things takes energy, right? And as you mentioned a little bit with nutrition, if you just get some sunlight, if you go outside in nature and you move, like what you're doing is you're giving your mind and body the energy it needs to process these things, right? So it makes things much more graceful and much more likely that you're going to heal as well.
Oh, absolutely. I have a series of things in my book that put you in that state of healing. And you talk about going outside, sunlight is a great one. Breath work, really doing a lot of work with breath, making sure that your water is structurally sound and has the right kind of minerals in it and isn't just your chlorinated tap water. Walking out on grass, being around nature, all of these things really add to that whole element that you're speaking of.
Yeah, for sure. you kind of talk about a little bit like we're not the diagnosis, or we're not the disease. And I feel like a disease is a condition, right? And conditions can change. So you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that that's an important one. I have a story about a patient that's so identified with his disease that he couldn't heal. And I think that when you get a cancer diagnosis, one of the things that I really discourage patients from saying is my cancer, where they identify, yeah, my cancer, yeah, my cancer is a leukemia. Yeah, my cancer is a glioblastoma. Because that identification with the disease puts you into a state that your body doesn't know what to do without it. So when I say you're not your diagnosis, the best thing you can do is to treat yourself as if you are healed, to act as if you already are healed. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Tuesdays with Morrie, but it's a book by Mitch Albom. He talks about a professor of his that he finds out he has ALS, and he goes back to visit him on a regular basis. And this man, even though he's facing a very life-threatening, debilitating disease, puts himself in this state of thinking and meditation and just beingness, of being wholly healed. He doesn't heal himself from the disease, but his attitude is so good. His pain is reduced. His experiences with his loved ones is so good. So it's just recognizing that you are not that disease. Be your authentic self.
Yeah.
It really helps with healing.
Or like I'm a diabetic, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
like who you are, but it's not, right? It's like
Yeah, exactly.
these
Right?
things like are lifestyle based, and if we shift our habits, we can shift our results. And that's such an important thing to understand. Like the power is in our hands. Like it's not in the external circumstances, and we can actually choose how we operate moving forward to change our results. And that's where the power and agency actually is.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah. You mentioned water. I think that's an important thing as well in terms of frequency, and because as you know, the municipal water supply is really bad. Like there's a lot of things in there that are unfortunately causing health issues. So it's like, what's your approach to water? How can we actually drink higher quality water in a sense?
I'm really lucky here in Sedona, Arizona. We actually have a beautiful river that's up the way. You can drive up the canyon, and there's free water that's structural because it's coming down. It has no pollutants upstream. There's no, sheep herders, and there's no industry or anything. And people can get their water bottles filled up there, and you get this structurally beautiful, energetic, quality, pure water. But now people realize this, and they're putting either filters in their own home, or there's water stores available now where you can actually go and bring your 3-gallon bottles and have them fill up a variety of choices, whether you want alkaline water or structural water or reverse osmosis water. But when you think about it, water is we're like 90% water. So when you're looking at healing, that is the most important thing that you can do from ingesting, probably more than food, to change the frequency of your body. So I would recommend people take a look at it, and it doesn't hurt to go ahead and get your water tested. You just
Right.
see what is in it. It's usually chlorine and fluoride that seem to be the biggest offenders.
So you have the high quality spring water, is that right?
Yeah, we're really lucky. And Sedona Water Company uses the water from there too, and then bottles it for sale. But I could just go up the canyon and get it.
Yeah, that's the top tier. Like that's what the ancestors have been doing for the longest time. Like it's gone through the Earth's hydrological cycle, right? It's the most purest, most cleanest thing you've ever come in contact with, honestly. And it's alive. Like as you know, it's flowing through these rocks, these minerals, and a lot of times, like water is alive as well. It's actually supposed to contain naturally occurring probiotics. Like most people don't understand like what real water is. And like reverse osmosis systems are very great for people with municipal water supplies and things like that. I mean, it's probably most applicable to people, but we have to keep in mind like spring water is like it's another level.
It is, and if you follow Emoto's work on the structure of water, and he took pictures of different water molecules and showed which types of water were the most structurally beneficial. And so it was that structural water. It's the water that's put into like a vortex almost
Right.
as it comes out, which is what's naturally done in the streams, but that was the water that had the highest frequency and the best patterns. And he took pictures of all those patterns, and you could see the difference between the water that was really energetically infused and then water not only that was polluted, but he also looked at water in which negative thoughts went into that water. And you saw how all those beautiful geometric patterns just completely destructed right in front of his microscope. So interesting work.
For sure, yeah. I mean, water is critical for so many things, like transporting immune cells, neurotransmitters. Our brain's 80% water, responsible for maintaining DNA. It's like so critical for life, and it's such something to think about and take control of. Definitely. Is there a certain amount
I'm
of water?
curious, what was that?
I was just going to ask, is there a certain amount of water you have people drink? Is there like a framework for that, you think?
For drinking water?
Yeah, is like a certain amount, like what's your recommendation on that?
Oh, well, I think, it's interesting because Dr. Gundry disagrees with this standard. So you hear the standard that half your body weight in ounces,
Yeah.
but Dr. Gundry, who I really respect, has a different take, and it's you don't need that much water, especially if you're getting foods that are really hydrated. You're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. So he says just drink water when you're thirsty. So I don't have a particular
Yeah.
amount that I recommend.
Yeah, it makes sense because ultimately you have to listen to your body. Like, of course we have these arbitrary measures, but you have to understand like health is such a personalized journey. You have to do what's right for you at the end of the day. No.
In the Gerson program, which is where I was first trained as a nutritionist, they don't even recommend water for cancer patients.
Really?
They have you do it all with juices. They have you drink 13 glasses, 8-ounce glasses of fresh squeezed vegetable juice every day. So that's where they want you to get your hydration.
Yeah, so many different ways, right?
Yeah, everybody's got a different program. But what I find is that there is no one-size-fits-all program for anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's is individual. Some people have too high a blood sugar, and so you're going to really take a restrictive look at the kind of fruit that they're eating and the carrot juice that they're drinking. And other people are the opposite. They haven't even eaten vegetables and fruit, and so you need to replenish their body with those nutrients that they've never had. They're a meat and potatoes family, and they've got colon cancer, and so you really need to cleanse that system with fruits and vegetables and fiber. So everybody's different. Everybody's block is different. Everybody's emotional and spiritual block is different. But that's what I enjoy. I enjoy working with people and looking at them like a puzzle, where let's put the puzzle pieces together. Let's find this nutritional puzzle and this little mental puzzle and your spiritual puzzle, and we'll put them all together and come up with your plan.
I love that, yeah. Because as we said, it's a personalized journey. And there's, of course, there are foundational principles that work for everyone, like eat real food, eat high quality, like organic food, and drink high quality structured water, like all these things. But then what is your goals? What is your health condition? And just kind of work from there.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Weston Price. Are you familiar with the Weston Price Foundation?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I really respect the work that he did back in the 1930s because he was able to see a pattern not about what people ate that made them healthy, but what people didn't eat. And I would say that that's a pretty universal thing too. And when he looked at all of these societies that hadn't been touched in the 1930s, you could do that hadn't been touched by Western foods, it was the refined flours and sugars that seemed to be the most detrimental. And that major diseases like heart disease, cancer, dementia, diabetes, none of those things occurred in those societies that didn't have sugars and refined flours. So I would say, from my perspective, that's a pretty universal recommendation as well.
For sure.
And that is that, keep your foods pure and unprocessed and eliminate or highly reduce the sugars. And that is also a frequency issue too.
All right.
Those are real negative frequencies.
Yeah, there's the time where there was unaffected areas that are from the standard American diet, right? And we definitely see the differences in health and wellness. So it's kind of like an eye opener there. Were you going to ask me something on water? You were about to ask something, and then
Oh, no, I think I asked it.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I hadn't heard the question, but it was about the, how much water would you recommend? So I think
Okay.
we got to that one.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
was good.
So we've talked about this a little bit, but say how do emotions and say love, for example, impact our overall immune system and our biology? Like, what do we need to know about that?
You know, I work with a lot of people around principles from a book called A Course in Miracles. And in that book, the overall premise is that really the only thing that exists in our spiritual being is love. And if we don't feel it, it's because we've put blocks in it. So those blocks that we want to remove and get to the feeling of love's presence is really the ultimate healer. The Course in Miracles even says you don't even need all this medicine and injections and all of the, you know, inoculations and vaccines, etc. That your body in homeostasis is in this perfect, you know, healing kind of process. And so you can do that by removing the things that you put in your path. So love is what ultimately is your inheritance. That's your spiritual inheritance. That's what we're really made of. That is what divine source created us from. And so from that perspective, the only thing that's keeping us from healing are the things we put in its way. So that's where we're looking at. Do you look at nutrition? Do you look at the relationship that you're angry at your boss, that you think that the president is doing something you don't like? I mean, it's really amazing the things that people get upset about. The economy, that there's not enough in my bank account. These things that you end up putting there as your total focus. You know, your football games, you know, your constant betting on games, whatever it is. It can be anything. It could be an obsession with cooking. It could be an obsession with, you know, whatever it is. It could be an obsession with doing things for your children, even, to the limitation of doing something for yourself, of looking at what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Anything, even as positive as it is, can be taken out of context and
Right.
become a block. So that, if that answers your question, that's what you're removing. You're removing to that block to that perfect divine healing love. That's what healing is, so that you can thrive and then help others. Right? Once you
Exactly.
get to
That's
that
what it's all
spot,
about.
that's what it's all about. Then you could be of service.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like these are tiny micro stressors throughout the day and just keeping us in that sympathetic state, right? As opposed to as a parasympathetic. Basically, if we're always stressed, we can't heal, right? It's like we have to a lot of times shift our perspective on things, like the way we go about it. And because like a lot of times, like it's not just the emotions, right? It's also how we think. And all that is going to literally create chemistry within our bodies, like how we think and how we feel. So it's so important to understand that and do the best we can to kind of influence that in a positive way.
Absolutely. If you've read, you know, Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, he talks about that those stressors, those things you put on yourself, shut down your receptor sites. So if you've got these receptor sites that are looking for that nutrition or looking for that structural water, looking for that energetic content, and you are arguing with your spouse, or you're putting anger into something like a guy cutting you off on the freeway, that the receptor sites fold on themselves, and all those little antennae that are out there searching around for the good energy, nutrition, structural water, good thoughts, collapse, and they rescind all of their little antenna, and so your cells and your body can't take that up. So he really rejects the idea that DNA or heredity is what leads to illness. That you can turn that around by turning your thoughts around and open your receptor sites back up. It really is quite a breakthrough book.
Yeah.
You know, even though I think it's 20 something years old now, but he's still out there on the speaking stump talking to people about it.
Yeah. There's a lot of great work. I mean, epigenetics, right? It's like going back to, it's not next door circumstances or this victim mindset or the genes. It's really about our lifestyle and how what we do influences those things, right? I mean, we have predispositions to certain things, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen or it's going in control. But it was really how we respond with our nutrition, our sleep, our exercise routine, all, of course, like our mindset and everything we've been through, that is going to express those genes or not.
Yeah, you bring up sleep. We haven't talked about that at all, but some feel that sleep's the most important thing that indicates a healed body. That you can do
Yeah.
all these things and you aren't getting good sleep, and you're staying up till 1 a.m. and then waking up at 4. You can't regenerate. That's the time in which your body and its cells regenerate. So sleep is incredibly important. Incredibly
Yeah.
important. So I have a lot of people who have such difficulty with sleep that we try to do things like create meditations, or tune in some beautiful music, maybe some Native American flute or something as kind of a backdrop, or a white noise of sorts, so that they can drift off and kind of listen to subliminal messages that help their body rest.
Yeah, for sure.
So, good point.
Yeah. Like, what are some things we can do to increase our sleep quality, right? Because it's obviously not just about the quantity, but how can we get high quality sleep? Just like there are certain pillars of nutrition. It's the same thing with anything else. So just like sleep, like what do you recommend for that?
To be honest with you, the most rest I get personally is when I go and do something just before I go to bed, do something really serene and yet move. So I might go do qigong, or go out and walk my dog during sunset, or something where I kind of breathe in that fresh air and then go to bed, but not watching TV or looking at screens. I would say that is the one big block to good sleep, is being on your phone all the way up until the moment you go to bed. It disrupts your sleep, and it'll disrupt that alpha state that you want. So
Right.
that's the one thing I really recommend people put that phone down at least 2 hours before you go to bed.
Yeah, we're just like all in our devices and distractions, and definitely can impact your sleep in terms of light as well. Like, you want to make sure our lighting is good, and
Oh yeah, make sure the room's real dark.
yeah,
Darkness is important.
yeah, kind of
And we
match the
used to go to
fundamentals.
bed when sun set, right? And we used to
Yeah.
wake up when sun rose. Now we're all messed up.
So we've talked about nutrition a lot. Like, what's your approach to nutrition? And is there a one size fits all approach, or is it more personalized? Like, of course, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, there really is no one size fits all approach to nutrition. I will tell you that there are certain types of cancers, when I'm working with people with cancer, that respond better to certain types of diets. If you have a blood-borne cancer like a leukemia, or you have a multiple myeloma, or something that is in the blood area, the circulatory system, you respond really well to juices because it can get there really quickly. So I recommend a fresh, organic, green juice mostly program, especially initially in the first 3 weeks, to flush the system out and to really get in all that wonderful chlorophyll, and to give you that energetic quality that you really need. Most people are already feeling, heavy or toxic. So for the bloodborne cancers, juicing is super important. But for the wasting cancers, for the cancers that are really attacking the digestive system, even colon cancers, people that have been eating a lot of meat and cheese, and it's really attacking that area, sometimes they can't tolerate juices or raw vegetables and fruit. Sometimes their intestinal tract responds negatively, and they end up getting bad diarrhea, or even getting nauseous. So for them, it's putting in really high quality foods, changing their diet from meat and potatoes to things that are really high intensity nutrition, but don't necessarily fall into the fresh fruits or vegetables section. It might be eating liver instead of steak. If you can get an organic calf liver, that might be important for them. It might be changing to a very high fiber type program in terms of a baked good, doing something like a banana bread with them, but that's an organic, maybe even a gluten-free type thing that's got flax seeds and chia seeds in it, or something, or some nuts, so that they can start getting high intensity nutrition. Or going to soups that are really calming and beautiful, vegetable soups. The Hippocrates soup is a really good one, that's just potatoes and onions and tomatoes and all kinds of green things like asparagus and broccoli, and putting that in a vegetable base. And it's very soothing. And you can even blend it if you don't like the chunkiness. You can blend it and make it a puree. So it really depends on what people are suffering with when I make those recommendations. And they get a personalized program and tells them how. And I really like, especially for cancer patients, I really like an intermittent fasting program where they give their body a chance to rest and regenerate, and maybe stop eating at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and don't start eating again until 8 or 9 in the morning. That's really beneficial for the body.
Yeah, sounds great. You mentioned organ meats, right? Those are very nutrient dense foods that most people don't really understand or even incorporate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, vegetables are great, but I feel like in terms of nutrient density, like nothing really beats liver, like you mentioned. And of course, like you can start to experiment with these things, right? It's like if we start to go beyond the current paradigm, because I feel like it's like very uncommon in today's society, but if we start to kind of get these huge nutrient intakes, because a lot of us were deficient nutrients, it can really kind of make up for things and start to bolster our vitality in the process.
Yeah, and I would say I like salmon for that reason too. Most omega fish oils, if you buy them in the store, are already rancid. So the best way you can get that omega 3 fish oil nutrient is through the actual salmon. So
Right.
I like that for that reason too. There's an interesting story, and I won't tell you who the specific nutritional expert is, but we were at a Cancer Control Society convention in California, and I had this expert nutritionist who'd written lots of books on my left, and I had Dr. Udo Erasmus, who wrote Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, on my right. And this particular expert was talking to Dr. Udo Erasmus at a break, saying, I'm getting kind of a receding hairline here. I'm kind of wondering why I'm getting this receding hairline. And Udo Erasmus says, well, are you eating any omega-3 oils? He said, well, no, absolutely not. I'm a vegan. And he said, well, why don't you try some salmon? Maybe add salmon to your diet once a week. And I heard that later, because I knew this person, that later their hair started to regenerate. So they really had this amazing respect and changed their diet from a vegan diet to one that included fish.
Yeah, and
So
it's like,
that was an eye-opener.
yeah, don't let your ideology interfere with your biology, right? It's like we hold on to these paradigms, and it's like you have to give yourself permission to change if something isn't working, right? You have to give yourself grace in that process. And just because something is working for you now doesn't mean it always will. And you have to listen to your body and do what's right for you in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in terms of nutrition, like we all know there's no one size fits all approach. But of course, like the foundational principles, like eat real food, right? Eat organic, all these things that are required, but then going beyond that and seeing what is required for a particular health condition or particular disease, is kind of calibrating that as we go.
Absolutely. I will kind of bust up a myth about organic foods. I taught in Sacramento for a brief period of time, a sophomore high school class, and did a nutrition class with them. And we were talking about the importance of organics. And one of the students said, I think that you're really elitist when you say that everybody should eat organically or as close to organics as possible. I think of all the poor people, they can't afford organic food. So I said, well, why don't we go do a field trip? So we went down to the local Safeway, took all the kids, we had a little van, went down there, talked to the checkers, and they let us take these baskets of food. We separated the kids up into 3 groups. And they went down. One group was to buy just conventional food, packaged anything, whatever you want. If you want it to be microwave popcorn or frozen pizzas or Coca-Cola, go for it. The next group was, conventional foods, but, primarily things that were in jars, like organic tomato sauce or organic Lundberg rice, things like that. And then the last group was to do things with one ingredient, if they could, but to keep everything organic. So they were mostly in the fresh fruit and vegetable section. They got olive oil or things like that too. And then the checkers allowed us to go through and have them run what the price was of each of those things. They had an exact list of that they had to provide 4 meals for a family of 4 out of their basket that they bought. So everybody checked off those lists. And what they found out was it wasn't that different. The organic foods were only like $2.18 more for that entire basket of 4 meals. I mean, for family of 4 for 4 days. It wasn't that different. Yeah. And it's because there's so much money in processing and packaging and advertising. You're not getting a good deal on all these processed foods. They're convenient. You can pop them in the microwave. But the long-term destruction of your health is what you really need to think about. And people think too short-term. So I think the kids saw it very differently after that organics doesn't cost that much more.
100%. I love that. I mean, and also you have to shift the mindset and to invest in yourself, right? Understand that your health is probably the most important investment. You have to understand, like, sometimes it may be, but ultimately, like, the more we actually demand that as consumers as well, it could probably change. And just being able to understand, like, the importance of it and how it impacts our biology and all these things, right? It's like, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, like the stuff inside needs to kill, right? It's doing this by being neurogenic.
It's suicide. Is what it is.
Or estrogenic, right? Disrupting nervous system or endocrine system. And it may not kill us right away, but definitely has an impact, right? It's like, and also there's interesting data showing how it disrupts our microbiome. And that makes sense because it's designed to disrupt these tiny organisms, right? So it's like, it has a huge impact, right? And you will feel a difference.
I agree.
Also, the farmers markets, like shopping locally, and you can often get deals. Like, it's a lot cheaper there. Like, you know, like to shop in a smart manner at local farmers markets. A lot more nutrient dense and better pricing.
And fresher. I mean, it's fresh off the farm. Our farmers markets are on Sundays here in Sedona, and so I was just there on Sunday, and I have to tell you that. I mean, farmers markets are becoming very vibrant places for shoppers to go. They're getting more and more crowded. So I think people are getting that idea now. And plus, our Health and Human Services Secretary is really promoting farmers markets. And Casey Means, who's kind of in charge of that whole idea, is really promoting farmers markets. So that's the way to make sure everything's fresh and as organic as possible. And the thing I just kind of took up this week for myself is I'm trying to adhere to the 100-mile rule so that nothing I buy for food is grown or processed more than 100 miles away from my home, which makes the farmer's market your primary go-to place.
Right. Because we can be shopping on the shelf and those produce items kind of been sitting there for weeks, and we don't understand that as soon as it's picked, it starts to lose nutrient density, right? So if you get it picked from the farmer's market, it could have been done that morning, as opposed to these things that have been sitting on the shelf for weeks, right? It's a huge difference in nutrition, and as you said, a lot more vibrant.
Well, not only sitting there for weeks, but think about how much gasoline some of these foods are taking in the trucking that ships them from, some of them, Argentina, Chile, right? That's sitting, even in our Whole Foods, they've got foods from South America. Think about how much petroleum goes into getting it here. So yeah, eating as close to Mother Nature and as local as possible, it makes it as fresh as possible. Absolutely.
I don't really think about it like that.
Yeah, you really ought to when gas is $4.75 a gallon. When I was in California, it's like $7.25 a gallon for gas. Crazy.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention on like the omega-3s in the fish is like, it's always food first, right? But then like the supplements and things have their place. Like in terms of fish oil, you definitely want to look for a triglyceride form as opposed to ethyl ester. Like it's kind of in the fish form, and kind of 1-to-1 ratio EPA to DHA, and all these things. Like you don't want these things to be rancid, right? Because you want to have the high quality omega-3s that are in the food. And this goes to the principle of, you know, how you do anything is how you do everything, and make sure you get the foundational principles down of nutrition first, and then go from there, right? Just kind of, because a lot of us, we kind of try to supplement our way to good health, but it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, and for my cancer patients, I prefer that they do everything with food as much as possible, because they can really inhibit the mechanism of having all of these foods in their digestion system when they take too many supplements. And for me, whole food supplements are so much better than these isolated nutrients that don't necessarily work together like all the nutrients in food. So if you can base your diet mostly on food and only supplement when something is really off, you know, in your health profile.
Yeah. All right, Ellyn, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you today for coming on the show, sharing your story with us, all your amazing insights on nutrition and how everything is connected, right? We have to not just focus on the physical, but also perhaps trauma, perhaps how we deal with things emotionally and our thoughts, because everything is going to be acting synergy, right? You can't neglect anything and think it's going to be as optimal as it can be, right? So the key is awareness, and give yourself grace in that process and transitioning in order to love, in a sense, because that's where, like, the seed of our actions, I believe, is our mind. Like our mind is the foundation, and then we have to work upon that, and everything is connected, and just being aware of that and trusting the process, in a sense, and just building a momentum as we go. So it's been a lot of fun, and thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, if we want to get connected with you and all your work, where can we go?
I have a website. It's called Sedona Solution. No S, so sedonasolution.com. Again, my name is Ellyn Mcleod. And I've got a book coming out this week. So it'll look like this. This is just a copy of what I printed off on the, just a little cover sheet. But it's coming out in Amazon. It takes
Awesome.
more than care to. So I'd love to have people go on and take a look and read the book description. If it fits a need you have, love you to pick it up.
Yeah, make sure. Awesome. All right. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Anthony. Bye.